You're listening to Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production.
That'll never not be funny, and I love that that's going to be an ongoing thing. And it's funny because I use it like in real life. I was like texting someone, I think the other day, and like I sent them like this long paragraph about. I was texting my boss, and I sent her like this really long paragraph of like all the stuff that like I had done for the day before and what was prepped for today. And then my next text was, "Before we begin, good morning." So, which I got. She didn't get it, but I got it.
Well, that's her loss. She needs to get her shit together.
I know, right? She should be listening to this podcast. It's kind of insulting, really.
Yes.
Considering, 3 episodes ago was one of our movies. She should absolutely be listening.
Some people just, they don't have the right priorities. At all.
I tell you, it's like she has to run a studio or something.
Do the ears on that headset move? Like, do they?
They can move, so they're separate. So what I have is I bought Juniper, my daughter, the Razer Quartz pink headset for Christmas because she is obsessed with Minecraft. All of her favorite YouTubers have this exact headset, and she loves it. It's a really good headset. I'm currently using it for recording on this because it's a really good headset. But she wanted the kitty ears one, and they didn't have that at the time, not available. But you can buy the kitty ears separately for like $9 at Best Buy, so you can just add them on. So yeah, they just kind of like clip on, so you can like move them. I can move them like apart a little bit and stuff, but because they're a little off balance right now, it looks like.
Yeah, so I was looking and it looked like they're kind of shifted to one side a little bit. And I was like, they can't be like stationary that way. And the more I looked at it, it looked like they were just clipped on or like on a track or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can actually buy, Razer actually makes this brand with the kitty ears built in, and inside the ear is like RGB. Like you can make it like change colors like the keyboards and stuff like that too.
Oh, that's adorable.
I know. I'm not going to lie. There's been a few times where I've seen them online, even now already owning a pair, and I'm like, well, I mean, I could get a pair for me, like in black. And I was like, no, I don't need to do it because they're like twice as much as how much these cost. So,
see, it worked out really well for me because working from home meant that I actually remembered to bring home one of our just like stock headsets from work. And so I actually have like a decent headset to like chat with you while we do the recording instead of relying on whatever like janky ass pair of headphones I have laying around and like the built-in microphone.
And you're like, these $14 Target ones, those will probably work, right? Yeah,
the ones that I've been using literally were like $13 on Amazon.
Right.
Like somebody recommended to me, and like they're pretty decent in-ear headphones for like not a lot of money, but that's what they are.
Yes, you get exactly $13 worth of sound and audio out of them. That's that was always one of those things that I'm always like, expensive doesn't mean good, but like a lot of times expensive does mean good. It does. You pay for quality sometimes.
Yeah, for some things it's definitely worth paying a little extra for something that's going to be a better experience overall and also like theoretically going to last longer. Like those pants I bought from American Giant.
That's American Giant. I see.
You see how I did that?
Right in there. Actually, I just read a thing that it's like 90-something% of Porsches that have been purchased in the past 25 years are still on the road today.
Interesting.
That's pretty wild. So every Porsche that's been purchased, let's see how many P's I can get popped into this. So Kitsy's like, oh my God. So every Porsche that has been purchased in the last 25 years, more than 90% of them are still on the road. That's wild. A 25-year-old car driving around the road. Like,
I wonder what the percentage of Porsches that have been built within the last 25 years are still attached to their homes.
Now, that's the study I actually care about.
That's the content I come here for.
Right. Ooh la la, Porsche, who gives a fuck about that? Now we're going to talk about Porsches? Now we're in business, my man. That's the other 99%.
I want a porch swing so badly. But one of the prerequisites for a proper porch swing is to have a proper porch. Yeah, I have neither.
So prerequisite for a proper porch for a porch swing is a proper porch. Peter. Right.
And there's your No Hoyt tongue twister for the week.
Speaking of which, hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I am your host, Michael Fight.
And don't call me Junior.
So today we're still in quarantine. So this episode actually we're recording this episode in the last Sunday in March. You were listening to this episode in the middle of April, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're probably still quarantined. That's it's a safe bet.
I would be willing to guess that things are not any better right now, and in a couple weeks we'll find out.
Yeah, so it's what, April 19th right now? Yeah, you're definitely still at home.
And if you're not, shame on you.
Shame on you. Go home. God damn.
Unless you're in an essential position, in which case, bless you and thank you.
Oh my God, thank you. Seriously, thank you. So we're going to talk about the movie called Here Comes Hell. There's two things about this movie. So one, I had stumbled across this movie because I had clicked on the title of another film, and I'm going to tell you the title of that film, and you're going to understand why I clicked on it. It was called Tonight She Comes, and I was like, well, I mean, I have to watch this movie. For science, I have to see what this movie is about. So I clicked on that one, and I was like, well, yeah. And then I saw the thing for this, and I was like, oh, Here Comes Hell. All right, let's take a look at it. So I clicked on it, and I saw the trailer, and I'm like, okay, we have to watch this movie. So Here Comes Hell is it's actually kind of interesting because the film is shot like it's a 1930s film for most of the movie. The ending, I'm kind of like, okay, you went off the style track a little bit, but it was cool.
Yeah. So it's an hour and 15. So it's a short movie, as often happens with our picks. But it's a good, fast moving romp. So there's not really it's an hour and 15 minutes long, but it feels like 5. It feels appropriately paced. The setup and the action are roughly 50-50 of the movie, which is kind of nice. And it's not like, an hour and 10 minutes of setup and then the climax of 5 minutes and like everything just wraps up quickly, as again often happens. As you said, it's a set as though it's a 1930s period piece in the English countryside, and so it's all black and white, and it's kind of like a little bit like a murder mystery sort of type vibe to it, although that's not the genre or plot at all, but like it's got that kind of setup vibe. Like initially watching the trailer, it's almost like if Clue was a horror movie.
Yeah, like it definitely. So if you watched the original Murder on the Orient Express, it kind of started out making me feel like it was going to be this sort of thing. I mean, they let you know right off the bat that this is going to be a ghost or supernatural story. One of the very first conversations, well, outside of the intro, the very first conversation the character has is like, oh, you're going to that place. Well, and we hear a little bit of a ghost story, but the intro was...
I love that they set it up as though like you're in the audience of a theater about to watch a film, and this man who's only credited as the host comes out and like, what you are about to witness is a tale of horror and demonic possession and is not for the faint of heart. So if you must leave now, do so. All right, they're all gone. Good. It just gets this really creepy look on his face. For those of you who have remained,
be warned. Yeah. So I actually like in just watching that part alone, I was like, all right, okay. Like I get the style wise, how is this movie going to play out? Like what is the director going for? And I got it. I think it was really cool. I loved that part actually. It was very reminiscent of like a 1930s film,
Yeah. There's a lot of ways that this movie could have gone terribly wrong, and one of which would have been to like try to take itself very seriously. And that opening sequence establishes that they do not. Even in that opening sequence, they could have tried to make it very like serious, and like they're really trying to convince you that like this is not for the faint of heart. Right. But like it was just like this perfect, almost like. I probably shouldn't make this comparison, but almost Hitchcockian sort of introduction, but done very like tongue in cheek and like you said, like it's telling you what you're in for.
Yeah, I think that is actually a good comparison if you take it in the sense of the period type thing, and not in the style of, because it's not in the style of a Hitchcockian. It's not a Hitchcock film at all. Like it's Hitchcock's very psychological thriller. This is a straight up ghost, demonic, supernatural. I mean, it's 1930s paranormal activity, like to a degree. But I mean, it's kind of got like a little bit of an Evil Dead vibe to it. Like the campiness of it is played up, and I mean, the Madame Belrose character, Madame Belrose, her character very like as soon as she does the thing, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, this is like okay, I expected Ash, to like come home and be like, what do we got here, motherfucker? Like that's kind of like. This is my boomstick. Like that's what I expected to happen. And it kind of does in a 1930s way. It's got a really cool feel to it. We lucked out on this one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so I guess for what little there was, minor content warnings. If you haven't picked up on it already, this is a movie about paranormal activity and demonic possession, and there is some very, very campy gore. There's some exploding heads and fingers being chomped off.
Melting
hands, one head removed by sword, things like that.
Fucking random.
So if you
Excalibur.
If you were okay with cheesy campy gore, all in black and white, so there's no like not even like the pseudo reality of like real red colored blood. If you're okay with that, then you can move on. If you're a little bit squeamish, then maybe not. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life.
I'm not your dad. Or am I? Juniper, stop listening to this podcast. But yeah, and surprisingly, and actually one of my, I would say, complaints of this film, I say criticisms instead of complaint, is there is a little bit of swearing towards the end. There was a couple of times that there was some swearing, and I kind of wish there wasn't, because I feel like it would have gone along with the 30s vibe more without it. But it was it was like three or four words at best. Like it really wasn't a lot throughout the film. That's fair, yeah. And I don't know, it caught me off guard. Like I'm a fan of classic movies. My mom was really big into classic movies. We used to watch them a lot. The Marx Brothers is still to me one of my comedy inspirations. But other films like that, and even the ones that were kind of, mobster, shoot 'em up type movies for what they were of the 30s. You never really heard somebody swear aside from the occasional damn or hell. But they dropped the F-bomb a couple times, and I was like, oh, that's weird. Like it hit me. It took me out of the film a little bit. But that's a minor criticism, I think, just me personally. I didn't really think about it, but those did stand out more than I feel like they normally would for me in a movie. And I think that really is it. Like I wasn't actively
conscious of the idea that this is like a 30s period piece, and language was out of place in it, but it did still stick out as like, they said fuck there. That's weird.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Yeah. And again, this is like minor criticism. I mean, there's, it's for what it is. For a 20,000 pound movie, that's how much it costs to make. They did 20,000 British pounds.
Damn.
Still really good. It's surprisingly good for that amount of money. But that's because the director and writer and special effects guy is all the same person, and that is Jack McHenry. So they saved a lot of money there.
So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the exchange rates, in today's dollars, 20,000 pounds is just shy of 25,000 US dollars. But in 2019, when this movie was released, it looks like it was a little bit more than $25,000. So roughly 25K for a movie of this quality. That's not bad.
I think that's really damn good. There's no, as of right now, there's no indication of like what it did box office wise. If it did, it was actually released only a couple of months ago. It was released November 11th in 2019 in the UK. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, it's one set, aside from the train scene, the movie is shot in the mansion the whole time. There's no other, the fake driving scene, which was brilliant.
Yes.
Which very funny. But yeah, so Here Comes Hell is available for streaming on Tubi TV and Amazon. If you haven't watched it yet, please pause now and do so. We are going to spoil the movie, as we typically do.
Yeah, we're going to spoil the fuck out of it.
We're going to spoil the fuck out of it. So to give a little bit of a start, we get introduced to our characters right off the bat. So our very first character we get introduced to is George. So this is George Walker Jr., right?
Yes.
Yeah, so George Walker Jr., but don't call me Junior.
He hates being called Junior.
Yeah.
George is the son of a Texas oil man, but I think we get hints that he's also possibly Ivy League educated as well.
Yes, yeah. So he mentions that he went to Oxford, right? Is that what?
I think he said, like, you didn't expect me to be an Oxford man, did you? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, because he's a Texan and he is on a British train right now, and he's heading to the country. He's heading out of London, heading towards the country to visit a set of his friends. So specifically, Victor. So Victor is kind of like, I don't know, he's a rich friend that has bought this cool mansion out in the middle of nowhere and decides he wants to invite his closest friends over to throw a party. And everyone calls him Vicky.
Victor is the ultimate parody of like a rich British playboy. Just like goofy, like always with a drink in his hand, always exclaiming things like, I say!
Yes. Well, she does not drink, say? Oh boy, it's very like that. It was great. And so we meet George. So George is on the train. George is on his train, and he kind of wakes up and he's and there's a man across from him, and they get to talk, and he sees George's gun, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm always carrying, and he gets to talking. He explains what he's doing, that he's heading to the old the Westwood Manor.
I think something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's headed. Yeah, so he's headed to the old Westwood Manor, and the man's like, "Oh," and he was like, "Oh, don't worry about the gun." He's like, "No, it's the Westwood Manor." He's like, and he tells him the story about these haunting noises, and it's crazy. And there was a crazy guy that lived there by the name of Ichabod Quinn, and he was just like, "Oh, it's just it's haunted." And he was like, I don't, I'm old Texan. We don't listen to ghost stories. And he's like, well, thank you. Be careful. Do proceed with caution. And he's like, So we've met George. Now, the other two that we meet, and we meet them via old school driving scene. This is like classic 1930s, 40s film driving scene where they're in a car and it is clearly a screen behind them just showing, generic driving footage. And we saw this, we also saw this in Love Witch. They did that a little bit too. Mm-hmm. Where we saw the fake screen behind them in the driving. But for them, so we see what's his name? Freddie, the famous tennis player, which is so classic. And Freddie looks exactly like the good-looking hero in every 1930s, 40s film. He's got the slick back hair and the nice jawline and the great suit. And he's, oh, listen here, boy. But they're all British. Everyone's British except for the Texan. And then we also have Elizabeth. And Elizabeth, is clearly upset a little bit. She's like, I'm just so nervous. Like, what if your friends don't like me? And he's like, nonsense. Oh, was it? Did they? So they make this reference. So he's driving really fast, and he was like, "What's the point of having a fast car if you don't drive fast?" And she was like, he's like, "Drive with style." And she was like, "Well, do you think it would be stylish to crash and die in a ditch?" And I was like, wow, are they throwing shade on James Dean right now? Like, was that like some really dark haha, James Dean? Because that's fucked up. So,
but bravo for throwing the little PSA in there, because just because there's nobody else, seemingly nobody else on the road, doesn't mean you get to drive like a dick.
Right. Exactly.
We're seeing a lot of that right now, even in the cities. So people are like, no one else is out. I'm just going to 60 miles an hour down this residential street. No, fuck you.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Total aside, the actor that plays Elizabeth, Jessica Weber, is listed as being, quote, known for #StarveCrow.
All right, cool.
And I don't know what that is, but the movie is called #StarveCrow.
I don't fucking
It's very confusing to me.
But she's also known for this movie, so this is a long line of good work for her. And Freddie, so Freddie's been in a lot though. So this is Timothy Renault. So he's got looks like a lot of British films.
He looks totally different in his headshots than he does in this movie too, because in all of his actor profile photos, he's got the kind of longish hair that's combed back, but still kind of wild. It's not at all slicked and held in place like the character of Freddy.
Yeah, he looks like his headshot on IMDb looks like he should be he's going to be the upcoming star of a new CW show.
Yes,
set in the Riverdale world. That's what he looks like in his headshot.
Oh my god! Do you see this movie that he's in? Frankenstein and the Vampire: A Dark and Stormy Night. A drama documentary telling the story of the celebrated gathering in Geneva, 1816, which led to the creation of both Frankenstein and the first modern vampire story.
Well, I mean, fucking duh. Oh, and it stars Claire Foy. Oh, wait, and Neil Gaiman's in it? Oh, it's
so it must
Claire Foy's,
actually, this must, it must actually be a documentary.
Yeah, because it's all real writers. Yeah.
But still, I want to watch it.
Yeah, me too. Neil Gaiman's in it, Margaret Atwood. Damn, there's some really good people. I do want to watch this. Yeah. Cool.
What a discovery.
Right. That actually sounds really interesting. Just in general, this sounds really interesting.
I was really hoping it was a movie because it just sounds fucking wild, but
right.
now it just sounds real and interesting. Anyway, let's move on.
And then our last cast of character, that's the main characters, is Christine, who is Victor's sister, who we learn Christine and Freddie kind of had a thing for a little bit, but then she kind of also had a thing with George.
That the impression I got was that she and George were young love. They were George must have spent a lot of time in England in his youth, perhaps when maybe they all went to Oxford together. Maybe that's where they knew each other. We don't really learn much about that. We just know we're all here together again. Isn't this nice? But there's talk of, she says, I never should have given back the ring. And he's, the last time you saw me, you said you never wanted to see me again. What changed? And all this stuff. So they must have had a great young love affair that blew up, and they haven't seen each other since.
Right. It was something like, it's definitely, there's some tension there. Now, so before we get into the actual plot of this, now that we've introduced the characters, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll actually start with the story of Here Comes Hell.
The Storyteller series is a podcast bringing back classic radio theater, featuring engaging storytelling delivered to you monthly. From narrated tales to character-driven stories performed by multiple voice actors, all will bring you on an audible journey. Join us at storytellerseriesPodcast.com or wherever you get podcasts.
Hey, so I don't know if you noticed, but it looks like we've got another Anchor ad.
Oh.
So I guess I we should talk about that. And I think we probably can't talk about Anchor without throwing out there right off the bat, like, it's free.
Free?
Can you believe it? It's free.
Wow. And I hear that there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
And if you're lazy like us, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. So it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I think some more too. I think many more.
That's fantastic because it's so much work going to all of those platforms.
It's so much.
And you could make money from your podcast with no minimum amount of people. So if you only have one friend that listens, you can still make some cash.
Like us.
Yeah.
And, it really is everything you need to make a podcast, just in one place, one-stop shop.
Wow, one place. Well, you should go ahead and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Like, right now. But, I mean, after the episode.
Hello and welcome back.
So, I'm not going to let you get away without telling the story of the text message that you shared.
Of my adventure today?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll tell the story. So, I had an adventure today. I'm selling a PlayStation 4, limited edition, the Star Wars Battlefront one. And, I've had it up for a while on Facebook Marketplace, where all people's dreams go to die. And so I had it on Facebook Marketplace, and I got a message. So I put it as kind of a high price, just because I like to fish out. I like to try to weed out the people that I know are going to try to dick me down to a really low price. But it currently sells used for $350. It's a limited edition. So I'm selling it for $350. I get a message from this guy. He was like, hey, blah, blah, I'm interested. I'm like, cool. I get 3 or 4 messages a day about it. And I'm like, great. And he was like, do you deliver? And I'm like, it depends on where. And he was like, oh, he's like, can you meet me in Oswego, which is like a 45-minute drive for me. And I'm like, honestly, I would rather not. Like, I don't want to drive that far. Like, it's, that's an hour there, hour back, almost hour there, almost hour back for me. And I was like, if I do that, I want the full price. Like, I want my full $350. And he's like, I have cash on hand right now. He's like, he's like, my wife has the car. I can't go anywhere, and I want to get it for my son. And I'm like, all right, fine. And I was like, let's meet at, I was like, well, where do you want to meet? And he was like, oh, just come to my house. And I was like, nope, somewhere public always, because I know better. And I was like, no, somewhere. I was like, do you live by like a gas station or like a restaurant or like a grocery store, like something that's nearby that you can walk to meet me at, somewhere public? And he was like, oh yeah, let's meet at Speedway. And he just wrote Speedway, not the Speedway. And I was like, cool, Speedway is a gas station. Cool, we'll meet there. And I was like, where is the Speedway? And he was like, oh, it's on this road, and my apartment's like up the road on there, so I can meet you there. I'm like, cool. So I hop in the car and I drive off, and I'm, I'm kind of annoyed because I don't like to drive so far just for a sale. Like, it puts me out, but I was like, whatever, it's, I'm getting the full amount of money, so it's wherever. And so I get all the way out there finally, and I realize that he meant the Oswego Speedway, which is the raceway.
That's what I was thinking.
Not the Speedway as in the gas station. And so I finally get out to the location, and I'm like, so I messaged him, and I'm like, dude, I was like, this is like the Speedway. I was like, I see what you mean. I was like, I'm in a parking lot of this Christian school, like across the street from these apartments. I was like, I'm here. There's nothing by this place, by the way. It's like literally out in the middle of fucking nowhere. So there's not like another gas station or a town. Like, it's just nothing.
That's not a public place for meeting, like
at all. Like, it's literally a field that he's going to bury me in or something. So I'm like, I'm in the parking lot of like this Christian school. I'm across the street from, the apartment complex you said you live in. I was like, what do you want me to do? And he was like, all right, wait there. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm waiting there for a few minutes, and I messaged him again. I'm like, where are you? And he was like, oh, just, I'm apartment 18. Just drive. I'll meet you in the parking lot. And this is it's a big apartment complex, and it looks like there's 2 apartment complexes kind of like next to each other. And I'm like, whatever, dude. So I'm like, I just want to go home. So I drive up, I get to this place, and he's like, oh, I live in this building. So I park at a parking spot that's right in front of the building. And so where I'm looking, I look at the building, and there's a door right to the front of me, and off to the side, there's like a little wooded area. And then it goes, wraps around, you see the rest of the other apartment buildings. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm going to come from the back. First he was like, oh, come inside. And I was like, no, you come out to me. Like, I'm not going inside your house. And he was like, oh, why not? Why not? Why are you making this complicated? And I said, like, listen, I don't know you, and I don't want to get robbed or murdered. I was like, haha. So just come out to me. It'll be super quick. You hand me the cash. I hand you the thing. You leave. Done and done. And so I see him come out, and he comes from the back of the apartment, and he comes walking up, and he comes to the side of the car. I get out. I open my back door where the PlayStation is, and I have a bag that has like some cables and stuff in it, and I'm explaining about the cables. And while I do this, a truck pulls up, like kind of right behind me, and there's 2 young kids in it, a guy and a girl. And the guy rolls up his window, and he was like, hey, are you going to be long? And he's like talking to me, and I was like, oh no. I was like, I'm just selling this to him really quick, and then I'll leave. He's like, okay, cool. He's like, I want to grab this spot. Like, we live right here in this apartment building. And he's like, and there's no spots nearby. And I was like, yeah. Like, we'll be really quick. And I was like, all right, you ready? Like, and I say to the guy, okay, you want to just give me the cash, and, then you can leave. And I was like, that way these guys can park. And he was like, well, I got to go get my wallet. It's back in the apartment. And I'm like, dude, you came all the way out here and you didn't have the cash on hand? Like, come on. I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'll just, come with me and we'll do it. I was like, nope. I was like, you go get it. I'll be out here waiting. Like, you come out when you're done. So he goes walking back, and when I see, as I see him walking back, I wait for like a second, and then I motion to the people behind me, and I was like, hey, I'm going to back out. Like, you pull into the spot, and then I'm just going to pull in behind you. And they're like, okay, cool. So I back out, they pull in, I scoot back up, and I get out of my car, and I'm leaning forward, and the guy and the girl, they come up to me, and they're like, do you know this guy? And I was like, no, I was like, I'm selling this PlayStation, got off Facebook Marketplace. I was like, I drove here, 45 minutes away. And they were like, he doesn't live in this building, I was like, what? They were like, yeah, no, he doesn't live here. They're like, we've lived here for 4 years. He lives like I've seen him in buildings like over, like in the other apartment complex. They're like, that dude's not coming back. You should just bail. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, man, this seems really sketchy. And they're like, I don't know what you got going on. They're like, but this seems really weird. Like, you should just leave. Yeah. And I was like, so I get in my car, and he was like, and I get a message, this is all over Facebook, and Facebook message, and he was like, who are the people in the truck? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. They live in your building. Like, I don't know. And he was like, well, sounds kind of fishy. Why don't we meet at a police station? And I was like, cool. Great. I was like, let's absolutely do that. Yeah. What's the address of the nearest police station? Because I'm all for that. Like, normal, I've done, I've sold things off Facebook Marketplace before, and I always meet the people in the mall because there's tons of people around, and they're not going to rob me or anything like that. With the people in the mall, the worst thing they're going to do is just not show up, and it's close by my house, and I can just say, that sucks, and leave. So he messaged me again, and he was like, just, drive around to this side of the parking lot, like, come out and, come up to my apartment. I was like, I'm not coming into your apartment. I was like, I don't know you. You don't know me. I was like, that's not a safe thing to do. And then I get the message, and I'll read for the exact wording. The exact wording is, I just get I say, please don't waste any more of my time. This could have been done if you just brought the cash to me the first time. And he messages, get out of the car. And I'm looking around like, oh, maybe he's, somewhere I can't see. And I wrote, where are you? And he said, put the PS4 on the ground or I'm shooting your car up. You have 5 seconds. So needless to say, my brand new car and I hauled ass out of there. PS4 still intact, by the way, motherfucker. And so I drive off. I call the cops. I sent the text message. Idiot didn't block me on the shit. I screen capped it. As soon as he did that, I'm like going 60 in this apartment complex, like screen capturing everything I can. So I'm like, this motherfucker just threatened to kill me. And so I'm screen capping it. I immediately call the police. I tell them who it is, and they're like, yeah, we know who he is. We've busted him for robbery before. And I'm like, yeah, well, he just threatened to kill me. So do something about it. Yeah. They're like, we've got officers looking for him. They're like, yeah, so by the way, he doesn't live in Oswego, by the way. He actually lives in the town that I fucking live in. And I'm like, awesome. Son of a bitch. And they're like, yeah, he doesn't even live here. We don't know why he's here. He actually lives in this place. And I'm like, you did. I'm like, great. But yeah, anyway, so I had to deal with the police, and it was a fucking adventure. So not only was I out like 2.5 to 3 hours out of my afternoon, which is really fucking annoying, but now I don't even have the $350. Like, yeah. My mom was like, yeah, but at least you're alive. And I was like, I would feel more alive with $350. Like, I don't know if you understand how more alive I would be with $350.
What a ride.
So that was my adventure of the day, needless to say.
You shared just like the real climax of that story through a photo on social media, and then it was like, oh, like we are talking about this. Like, you're going to tell me the story.
This is definitely a story. Yeah. I'm a fucking dick.
Oh.
And I thought about it too, like, even if he tried, because, like, I don't know, he was, I'm not a tall guy. I'm only about 5'9" or so. And, like, in retrospect, like, if he had tried something without a gun, I was like, man, I could have fucked that guy up too. It would have just been like, how do you feel now, you fucking idiot? Like, trying to rob some kid off a goddamn PlayStation too. I'm a fucking loser. But yeah. So anyways, here comes
the story is people are terrible.
People are terrible, man. They really are. It was very frustrating. And like the other like annoying part too is, the one cop who like, took my statement and stuff, like, when I drove off, I pulled off to a road, like a side of the road, and then I followed him to a gas station and we chatted. And he's like, oh yeah, so what were you selling? And I was like, oh, Star Wars Limited Edition Battlefront, PS4 Pro and blah, blah. And he was like, how much did you want for it? And I was like, well, I was asking $350. I was like, but I'll take less. I was like, I was expecting to be haggled down. I was like, but I was going to do the $350 for him just because it was so much of a drive. And I was like, so it's a limited edition, and it comes with Battlefront 2, and I'm also supplying this extra controller. I'm like, dude, is this cop going to buy it? And he didn't even end up buying it. And I was like, got screwed over twice on a sale. I would have given him a discount for being a cop. I would have done it. But man, he still was like, oh, okay. I'm like, don't fucking ask if you aren't serious, bro. Yeah.
Serious inquiries only.
I know. Don't waste my time, cop. Don't waste my time. Go arrest people that threaten to shoot people.
Speaking of serious inquiries, this movie makes some serious inquiries into the afterlife.
Good segue, my friend. Good segue, old chum. Good segue, I say. So, when we left off after my wild story is, so everybody is here, and he's talking about what they're doing, and we learn that Freddie proposes to Elizabeth in the most nonchalant way ever. It's kind of cute, but at the same time, I was like, put some fucking effort into it.
It's so casual. Like they're preparing for this like dinner party, and he walks in to ask her to help him with his cufflinks. And as she's helping, he makes some sort of self-effacing comment like, grown man like me, I should be able to do this by now. But then he's like, how would you feel about always helping me with my cufflinks? What do you mean? Well, I'm asking you to marry me. Can't you tell, you fool?
You silly old fool. She's like, what?
That wasn't obvious at all.
No, it wasn't at all. And she was like, well, I don't know what to say. And he was like, well, yes, obviously. And it was, but it was just so, but it was very like 1930s, I'm the guy in charge, like, duh, oh, you silly little girl. Like, of course, this is what you're always after type deal. But it was very, it was very casual, but it could have been a lot cuter. Like, it could have been more romantic. It's like, he was like, how would you feel about doing this forever? And then he gets down on one knee and makes it a big speech. Like, that would have been cute, but that's not the character that Freddie is. No,
he's the cocky, famous athlete.
Right. Which I think it's funny too that, and it was very spot on that they made him like a tennis star, because that is such like a 1930s, like high-end British, young to do, with his Oxford bags and his slicked back hair and bully, like that's exactly who this guy was. So I just think it was just very like spot on that this is how he proposes to his gal.
So they all meet down in the drawing room or whatever room of this like decrepit old mansion they happen to be in, and Freddie makes introductions to everyone for Elizabeth. The rest of them, they're all old friends, and Christine, of course, immediately starts being shitty to Elizabeth and talking down on her. And at first, it kind of seems like it's because she's just like, well, who are you? What do you do? Oh, I'm a solicitor's secretary. Oh, what does that entail? And it's like, sounds like she's talking down on her for like not being high society like the rest of them. We do learn later that there might be another reason why. But of course, Victor's solution is to just try to get everyone drunk. Like he already is.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, a whiskey with no junk for you, George. And then, of course, the room goes to a complete standstill of their chattering and laughter when he offers Elizabeth a drink, and she goes, "Oh no, I don't drink." And they're all like, "What?" Like, it's great.
They can't process it. They don't understand.
And it's great because Christine, the very first thing that Christine says when she walks in, she goes, "Look at my hand, Vicky. What's wrong with it?" And he's like, "I shall fetch you a drink immediately," which is hilarious. It was such a great drink through the way.
Over dinner, which they wasn't able to get together much of a staff on short notice. So all of this was the fruits of my own labor in the kitchens. Victor is not a cook. He served what appears to be overcooked like whole birds.
It looks like a fucking fried pigeon is what it looked like. It's the head and beak.
Like feathers removed, but otherwise intact. And then like maybe some mushy potatoes. I don't know. But over dinner, Freddie decides to offer a toast and share the news of his marvelous engagement, which in preparation for the toast, Victor needs to top off his glass, by which I mean he fills a goblet to the brim with wine.
There's the comedy gold of that scene is he was like, "Oh, hang on, let me everyone charge a glass," and of course this is empty, and you see him pouring it. And it's like this really long scene of him pouring and pouring and pouring.
And everyone's just watching.
And then he picks it up and he goes, "Carry on," and then immediately starts drinking it. Like he doesn't even wait for the toast. Like there was just that subtle little like scene. It was just that was one of the scenes I was like, haha, I actually like laughed out loud for that one because it was just brilliant.
And of course, Vicky's being very coy about the whole reason he's brought everyone out there. They keep asking, "So why are we really here?" Obviously the place is a dump, and there's no like obvious reason for a get together in this mansion. And he's like, "Oh, all in good time." And so like, "Let us retire to the games room. Our final guest should be here soon." And finally, they get it out of him that he's bought this place because of the rumors of the previous owner, Ichabod Quinn, and his not only his love of the arts. He was a painter with some bizarre inspirations, but also his dabblings in the dark of the occult and whatnot. And so he wants to see if through a seance they can make contact with Ichabod Quinn and learn more about him.
So they have invited Madame Belrot, as he keeps saying. Who, it's funny because he says it like this French, like is this French pronunciation, but she's like Irish or Scottish or something.
She's hella Scottish.
And she comes in, she's like, all right, everybody, we're going to do this, yeah. And he's like, Madame Belrot. It's very not, but so this old lady comes in and she's like, oh, hello, and she greets everyone by name. She's like, oh, you must be this person, you must be this person. And she's like, and of course, George, being the skeptical American, is like, well, how is it everyone's name? Or someone asks, how do you know everyone's name? She's like, oh, a name is a name is a name. It's like, that is not the answer to my question.
That's not an answer at all.
I need to know the real answer. So
I love. You pointed out, the skeptical American. I love that for once, like. The rowdy Texan in the group is the only one with any goddamn sense. When they're like, we're gonna make contact with the paranormal, he's like fuck we are, I'm out. And they peer pressure him into staying, and he's like, oh, why the hell not? But he's the only one that's like, this is a really dumb idea, and we probably shouldn't ever do this at all.
They were like, oh, were you afraid? And he was like, well, he's like, I just feel like we should leave things we don't know anything about alone. I'm like, yes, that's like a very un-American answer.
Until somebody implies that he might be cowardly, and then he says, I ain't yella.
I ain't yella. And I'm like, well, there he's back to the American again. Can't be. But he makes a really great comment later, and I forget the full context of it, but I think it's within the speech, and he was like, just because a chicken has wings doesn't mean it can fly.
It's like, what does that even mean?
What is that even supposed to mean?
It doesn't matter. The point is.
The point is. It's fucking fantastic. So they all sit around to their little seance, and everybody is hands on the table, form the circle and the whole spiel, and it's a very typical seance of all the lights are out except for a candle, and Madame Belrose. Does anyone want to talk to anybody? And he's like, yes, I want to speak to Ichabod Quinn. Vicky chimes in. So of course, Madame Belrose is calling out to Ichabod. Ichabod, are you there? And we get the banging noise, the very standard fare for seances. And then, well, there he is. He's coming right towards us. This pale man. What is wrong with your eyes? What has happened to your eyes? And this is where the film starts to kind of veer away from that style, the 1930s style, and be more of like the 80s Evil Dead style. Like, this is the shift in the film.
Yeah, and I like that it kind of starts with some really clever camera work for 3 scenes in a row. So it starts with this seance scene. They're all around a table, and she makes a point a couple of times to say, "Don't break the circle." And so it's where they have the camera rotating around the table, so you see from everyone's perspective, repeated. It's going around and around.
Yeah, full 360. It was awesome.
As she's calling out to the spirits, and then suddenly it stops and focuses on Madame Belrose when she becomes possessed, and we hear this bone cracking sound, and her neck goes back and her eyes roll back, and she begins speaking in this really dark, eerie voice of a prophecy about hell being opened and the 12 princes of darkness coming forth on the earth when the dawn breaks, and blah 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 blah. And of course, there's a great moment where she yells the title. She yells, "Here comes hell!" I'm like, fuck yeah, she did it. I love when they do it. And of course, after this, she kind of slumps forward, and everyone's curious if she's alive or whatnot, and Elizabeth starts to reach for her, and Madame Belrose pops up and kind of lunges at her, and they knock her down. Christine walks up behind her with a bottle of wine, knocks her over the head, and says, "I don't know about anyone else, but I could use another drink." And so then that moves to Another bit of clever camera work that is very familiar if you've ever watched anything like, say, That 70s Show, where the perspective is now from the center of the group and keeps panning back and forth, or like full 360 around to each character in turn as they say their lines. And essentially, like, they're all leaning over Madame Belrose as she's on the ground. So it's as though it's from her perspective. Then finally, as you mentioned, there's that kind of Evil Dead-esque scene. Like, she rises up, and now she's very obviously like possessed and like monstrous. And there's like just these fantastically campy, goofy creature effects where like her face is like super exaggerated, and like, you know, she has like big sharp teeth, and she starts attacking. And then you start to see like from her perspective as she's running around the room chasing people, but it's that kind of blurry fisheye sort of effect, first person. So it's these 3 sequences in like quick succession where they do like really neat things with the camera, and I was like, this is well done, like it subtle
really
and clever and really well done.
No, I completely agree. So, you know, I look at the cast and crew of this stuff. So, like, the cinematographer was Rory McHenry, so obviously related to the director and writer. So, I mean, he's done only a few things. Been a director, but this is his first shot being, second shot being a cinematographer. It looks like he's done one other thing, but it was a short film. But this is really well done. Like, a lot of times we watch these movies, you know, and Cannibal Cop and Sex Squatch and all those other things are perfect examples where, like, you know that this is people who don't know the fundamentals of film. They're just like, hey, it'd be cool if we made a movie.
Yeah. Fun addition to that, Rory McHenry is credited as a writer for one of the movies that I was thinking about proposing during our month-long homage to Killing Nazis, Jack Boots on Whitehall. And
nice.
Like kind of like puppetry style, like a Thunderbirds or Team America style World War II movie. And he's has writing credit on that. I think that's
it's pretty cool. There's some good people in there, like Ewan McGregor's in that, Stephen Merchant. Like there's some well-known people. And it's Charlotte Moore, Rosamund Pike, Martin Ellis. He's been in Doctor Who many times.
Tom Wilkinson, nice.
Oh yeah, no, that's pretty crazy. We'll have to we might have to check that out.
Actually had no idea how good the cast was, or I probably would have actually followed through with suggesting that. It just looked like funny and goofy, but I was like, we've got our plates full already.
That we did. But yeah, so that, you know, as I mentioned, is like, it shows that these people knew what they were doing. Now, one of the several IMDb comments said that the one thing that was really frustrating about this film was the sound. It was that it was very inconsistent, that, you know, one character would speak at, you know, 2 characters would be talking at a normal volume, and one would be like, perfectly hear them, and the other one you're like, wait, what did they just say? Like, and that happened a lot. Or it would go from this really high shrill booms and stuff to, you know, barely being able to hear. And that I agree with was frustrating, but I have subtitles on. I often miss out on that kind of stuff anyways, just because can't hear shit too many years in loud bands without earplugs.
Yeah. Well, and I don't... Nothing against the Brits, but a lot of times I just have trouble understanding them anyway. So, like, if I don't already have the subtitles on, I usually turn them on for British movies.
It's true. So at this point, Madame Belrose is up in, you know, full on campy monster form, and she lunges at Freddy and bites off his finger. To which, of course, his first reaction is, my serving arm! Freddy. And so everything, you know, is going batshit crazy. They're pushing away, and then, you know, she keeps attacking people, and all of a sudden, pow! Her head just explodes because George, our lovely Texan, has decided to blow her goddamn head off. And it was just like, She was like, why did you bring a gun to a dinner party? For this exact reason. Aren't you glad that I didn't?
Dude was prepared.
So at this point, she pops to the ground, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what the hell's happened?" Apply pressure to the wound, and just as they kind of get things settled and they start to realize shit's gone weird, up pops up Miss Madame Belrose again, head all messed up. She's just lower jaw and a dangling eyeball, and
so gross.
They're like, "Fuck!" So Elizabeth was like, we should phone the police, or hospital. And he was like, this house has no line. And she was like, then let's drive to the nearest village, which I love that Elizabeth is the only one who's thinking like, get me the fuck out of here right now. And she was like, we are leaving.
Yeah, Elizabeth established herself very quickly as the only one who has any sense of control in this danger scenario.
She's also the only one sober by this point. So
that is an excellent point.
So also another thing that they kind of dropped in this film in the beginning that they didn't capitalize on in any way, and they didn't bring back as like a point of knowledge, but they acknowledged that Elizabeth is like, oh, I work as a secretary, but I'm really a writer writing about ghost stories and how it's not the ghosts that are bad, it's really the humans that are bad. And they dropped that, and I was like, ooh, foreshadowing. But they never actually do anything with that, which is fine. But
yeah, I mean, the whole thing with trying to summon Ichabod and it leading to opening up the gates of hell and unleashing, the darkness on the earth, there were no ghosts involved that were like evil or causing problems here. It was all the work of humans that is their own undoing. So right. I guess there's a little bit of that, but her story actually sounds like it could be really interesting, and I hope that somebody actually writes it.
Yeah, if I learned anything from watching Tiger King, it's don't stick your arm in a tiger cage, and I feel like that is a great metaphor for this film. Because the person on the Tiger King, they got their arm bit off because they stuck it in the tiger cage.
That's that. Yeah.
So don't do that.
You really shouldn't have to be told that.
Right. You would think.
That's one of those things that like instinct really should win out.
Right. Be like, actually, this is probably not a good idea. But I'm going to do it anyway. Here we go. Fuck, man. My serving arm.
So they try to run away, but the front door conveniently closes and locks, and they can't get out. And so they start to head towards the back door, but are cut off by Madame Belrose. And there's this great scene where George just unloads an entire magazine on her, and she keeps coming. So he drops the clip, pops in another, and keeps shooting. And Elizabeth is just like, how much ammunition did you bring?
Which is just such a great scene.
And that's the one and only time that they acknowledge the infinite ammo clip. Yeah. But it's a really great nod to this. He really not only should he probably have not had the gun to begin with, but there's no way he should have this many rounds. And the gun continues to be able to fire throughout the remainder of the movie.
So they realize that at this point she can't see them as she's lurching towards them, and they're like, all right, let's quietly back up and head to the back door. So they slowly backing up, and of course Victor, being the oaf that he is, knocks over a vase of flowers, and she comes running after him, and then he goes, scatter, and they all scatter and try to get away. Now at this point they're all separated, so now we've got our moment of isolation individually outside of our moment of isolation of the group, and they each start having their own little ghostly paranormal things. So, Victor gets taunted by his father, like, why are you wasting our money? Like, what have you become? You're just flitting around the world, and, women and trips to India and all these sort of things. And, we get Christine, this is Victor's biggest fear about, disappointing his father. And then we get Christine's biggest fear. She shrinks. And everybody is just like, oh, look how insignificant you are. So Christine's biggest fear is feeling insignificant. And then we get Elizabeth, who at this point she's kind of off on her own. So it's kind of we've got Vicky, Christina, Barcelona. Nope, that's a different movie. Hang on. That's the movie name. By Rebecca Hall. Anyways, but yeah, so they all kind of get separated. So Freddy at this point looks up at his arm, and his whole skin starts to melt off, and it becomes bones, and then the bone melts away, and he's and then he becomes possessed, and he stands up, and all of a sudden has his arm back, and then he starts chasing after everyone, and then all of a sudden his arm isn't there anymore, and it's that was a fun little. I was like, I got you.
Elizabeth reacts very quickly and grabs a paintbrush and stabs him right through the ear with it.
Right through the ear. Yeah.
Like real quick thinking. Like doesn't miss a beat, that one.
Elizabeth is definitely the hero of our story, and I kind of expected that she was going to be when we first got introduced to her, because they definitely, of all the other characters, they lingered on her the longest. Once everyone got to the house, I was like, okay, so this film's about Elizabeth. Because at first I was like, oh, maybe, George, the Texan, is going to be like, playing the detective. Like I was thinking Murder on the Orient Express. Like, oh, he's going to be the detective that kind of filters everything out. And then, we met, Vicky, and I was like, oh, maybe it's going to be that. And I'm like, nope, it's definitely Elizabeth.
Well, and Elizabeth is basically the outsider in this group too. Like she's the only one that wasn't like childhood friends. She's the only one that's not from high society, and she initially meets with their scorn and has like almost like more to prove. And boy, does she!
Boy, does she! So now we've got Freddy is dead. We've got Madame Belrose is missing a head and wandering around. Everyone else has had their ghostly illusions. And so finally they kind of all get back together, and, they're all like, okay, Freddy's dead at this point. She was like, Elizabeth's like, I've killed Freddy. So the four of them are together, and they're like, all right, what are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And George is like, listen, he's like, we're going to, so anyways, I started blasting. Like he's in that mode at this point. And Vicky grabs the gun from him as they're arguing, and accidentally fires and kills our George. George is now dead.
No.
I know. And, he was like, it was an accident. I'm sorry. So now we're left with Vicky, Christine, and Elizabeth. And they decide that, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to armor up. And this was also a very standard arm up 80s camp, again, very Evil Dead 80s camp scene where they're all like strapping, guns and swords and stuff to them, which is really weird.
It's a real quick cut montage too, because they keep showing like whiskey glasses being filled, wine being poured, like Elizabeth straps on George's holster and pistol, and glasses getting refilled again, and then like you see like Victor empties a wine bottle, and like he finds an old musket and like puts the wine bottle into the barrel of the musket, and then like glasses being filled again, like being like chugged and whatnot, and Christine reaches into like a fireplace or whatever and pulls out a fucking sword, Excalibur.
It goes Excalibur, which is so weird.
She holds it aloft, and then like finally montage scene cuts, and they're all standing around like, and Victor and Christine have their drinks, and go to like offer Elizabeth one, and Victor's like, oh no, remember, she doesn't drink, and she just takes the bottle, which again is like much like a Monstro del Mar. It's the fucking bottle of Johnny Walker. She just takes it and chugs it, and I'm like, apparently, if you don't drink and you are at or near adulthood and have never drank, then just fucking chug Johnny Walker your first time. That's the way to go.
To be young again. It still hurts my throat thinking about it. So now we're ready to go. We've got, Freddy coming back, and we've got Madame Belrose, and they're all coming in, and of course they head off to go do their thing. Freddie comes in and, starts going after people, and he goes after Elizabeth, who immediately gets thrown to the ground. And Christine comes with the sword and swipes it at him, and he grabs it, and he's like, too slow, Christine, and, knocks her back. And of course, here comes Vicky with his thing, and he smacks him across the face, and he ends up dying. How does he end up dying?
Freddy suddenly has a fucking dinosaur hand.
Oh, yeah. How did I fucking forget that?
his missing hand is now like a T-Rex head, just like a tiny little T-Rex head.
It's like,
and like bites
those
out
little like
Vicky's throat.
toys, like the little like trigger to, where it's like the T-Rex head on the stick, and that's what it was. It was the most random thing. Like obviously he's like, haha, rah, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? I was like, is this the prequel to Velocipaster and we didn't know about it? Like, what the hell? It was so random. And yeah, so he takes a bite out of Vicky's throat. So Victor's dead, and they're like, what the fuck? So they go running, but then like the ghost tries to like fuck with their minds, and this is where we get the idea that Freddy and Christine had a thing, because they see Freddy and he's like, oh, Elizabeth, I only brought you here to make Christine jealous and to blah blah blah, and then he turns to Christine and is like, oh, Christine. I only brought Elizabeth here to, make you jealous, and it's you I really want. And they're like, is that true? Blah, blah, blah. And they, it looks like they're about to turn on each other. But then, of course, Christine grabs the sword and chops Freddy's head right off, which was pretty fantastic. And at this point, we've gotten back to the part where Madame Belrose is at a summoning circle of sorts, opening up the gates of hell, which is really just a black circle of emptiness. And so the girls, they run in, and they finally do whatever they need to do to get Madame Belrose to go through the circle of hell and start sucking everybody in. And Christine gets sucked in. And so first, Elizabeth like grabs her hand and tries to like help her, and then she like slips out of her hand, and she is somehow in that time able to grab the sword, put the sword back into Christine's hand in time for Christine to grab it after having let go. So like she is falling in the slowest way possible. Yeah. But then of course, Elizabeth is holding the blade end of the sword. It's, cuts her hand and blah, blah, blah. And then she's gone, and Elizabeth is the only one left, and the house crumbles poltergeist style. The end.
Literally
it just ends like that.
Big with the text and everything. The end.
Mm-hmm. Just
magnificent.
It was. So the thing about this movie is as we mentioned, it's like an hour 10. It's just fun. If you've ever watched a classic 30s film, you're going to see a lot of throwbacks and call-outs to things that are very 1930s-esque. The characters play their parts really, really well. Like I said, my only criticism is once Madame Belrose turns, it turns more into a black and white Evil Dead than it is in the beginning of the movie, where it's a very 1930s, murder mystery type film. So it does have kind of that turning point, which is not necessarily bad. It's different. Like the end of the movie thematically is just much different than the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
But I liked it. It was good.
I did half expect the narrator to come back out and tell us, the moral of what we saw or something like that, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, it literally just ends. Like there's no mid-credit, end-credit, prologue, nothing. It's just like she walks out of the house and then the movie ends and we're done.
And being a very small production to begin with, the credits are very short sequence. It's more thank yous than anything, and that's just it.
That's it. So, should you watch Here Comes Hell? Absolutely, 100%. Yes. I think it's a fantastic film to watch. I thought, especially knowing, I looked it up about halfway through the film, but especially knowing that this movie was only made for $20,000, roughly $20,000. Fuck yeah, dude! This is better than most other $20,000 films we've watched. I think this is the best $20,000 film I've ever watched.
This is better than several like $1 million+ films that we've watched.
That's also true.
The fact that for 20-ish thousand, they made a movie of this caliber, like, bravo.
Yeah, 100%. So again, this movie is streaming for free on TubiTV.com. Highly recommend watching it there if you do not have Amazon Prime. If you would rather watch it without commercials and you already own Amazon Prime, of course, watch it there. Why not? But yeah, so good movie. And if you wanted to at some point find us on the internet, how would you do that?
Well, since you're stuck at home and you've got plenty of time, you might as well take a pause from Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, constantly reloading for that the endorphin high, and check out thenahoit.com. That's THENHOIT.com, and that'll help you plan out at least some of your quarantine watch list by checking out what we've got upcoming for the month. You can check out trailers as well as see where these movies will be streaming. And while you've got so much free time, you might as well scroll down just a little bit further and leave us a comment. Tell us how you think we're doing, or like put in any requests you've got. We've got time too. And then, of course, since we're on the subject of having time, why don't you scroll down just a little bit further and click on the link for our other podcast, Left to the Dial, where you can hear our audio engineer, Kitsy, and myself discuss music that we love, sometimes with special guest hosts. But Michael, where else can they find out about us?
So we are also on social media. You may have heard of it. So we are on Twitter and Instagram, and both of those places we are at the Nahoit Podcast. That's THENHOIT Podcast, and you can see clips and trailers from upcoming episodes, clips of current episodes, so little sound bites of current episodes, as well as, we'll tease out fun facts and maybe talk about other movies that didn't make the cut. So definitely check us out there. Follow us. Again, you can tweet at us, tag us on Instagram if there's a movie you think that we should watch. Tweet it at us, tag us on a trailer on Instagram or whatever, and we'll definitely check it out. We would love to hear your suggestions. As all part of our Night Shift Radio productions. So thanks a lot for joining us, everyone. We greatly appreciate it, and we will see you next episode.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.